With Edgar Wright-directed psychological horror film Last Night in Soho now in theaters, we're getting more insights about screenwriter Krysty Wilson-Cairns' previous video game movie adaptation aspirations. The writer once gave a pitch for the beloved 2007 Valve video game Portal. More than 2 decades since the first film came out, The Matrix is still just as relevant to society and culture as it was upon release in 1999. An epic tale of human civilization uprising against machines centuries in the future, the original Matrix trilogy developed common tropes within the realm of science fiction and took them in exciting new directions, something we look forward to continuing in the upcoming fourth film, The Matrix Resurrections. While many of the film's themes have become the subject of plethora of memes, notably the red pill versus blue pill dichotomy, the motifs of transformation have been embraced as an allegory for transgendered life. In it, the player controls silent hero, Chell, as she faces a series of puzzle platforming challenges constructed by evil artificial intelligence GLaDos in the Aperture Science Enrichment Center, with the only promised prize being a slice of cake. When you talk about transformation, specifically in the world of science fiction, which is just about imagination and world building and the idea of the seemingly impossible becoming possible, I think that's why it speaks to them so much. Original Matrix co-creator Lily Wachowski told Netflix. She and sister Lana Wachowski, director of the upcoming fourth Matrix film, The Matrix Resurrections, both later came out as transgendered. Regardless of your takeaway from watching The Matrix and its 2 sequels, The Matrix Reloaded and The Matrix Revolutions, there's no denying the impact the franchise has had on the pop culture and entertainment landscapes and continues to have to this day. Chell explores both the mystery behind arriving at the decrepit facility and its test chambers while employing the special abilities of the Aperture Science handheld portal device. As explained in a recent interview with Cinema Blend, Wilson-Cairns said she still dreams about the various scenes from her failed Portal movie pitch to this day. Notably, The Matrix is revered for offering fully realized and nuanced characters to the big screen, characters that can all be seen in various lights. It's with this in mind that we present the character from The Matrix, that you are based on your zodiac sign, with some creative interpretation, based on the characteristics listed at Refinery 29. Aries is Neo. Well, we might as well begin at the beginning. Claiming she crafted the best story ever for the pitch, the Oscar-nominated screenwriter said despite her obsession with the game, it found no interest from producers. I'm haunted by the things I didn't get to write. You know the video game Portal? I was pitching to do an adaptation of that and I love that video game, obsessed with it. It was quite early on in my career. And I came up with what I think is the best story ever, and I pitched it, and they were like, nah. And sometimes at night I play scenes from that in my dreams. That's the only thing I'm haunted by is that I didn't get to make the Portal movie, Wilson-Cairns told Cinema Blend. Given the fact that Last Night in Soho moved famous video game creator Hideo Kojima to tears recently, we think Wilson-Cairns might have a real shot at crafting a formidable video game adaptation, as well. In her short but impressive filmography so far, Wilson-Cairns nabbed an Oscar nomination for the Sam Mendes-directed war drama 1917, wowed critics with the final season of Showtime's Penny Dreadful, and is slated to co-write the script for Taika Waititi's forthcoming Star Wars film. You can catch Last Night in Soho in theaters now and check out our review of the film if you still need convincing. Ares, represented as a ram, is the heroic Neo, Keanu Reeves, whose journey the Matrix franchise follows. Refinery 29 tells us that Ares' strengths lie in its courageousness and determination, both qualities of which are fully present in Neo. You can't really attempt to do the impossible so many times without those traits. Like Ares, Neo is confident, which is why he believes he'll be able to rescue Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne, in the third act of the first film. His enthusiasm is on full display when he soaks up hours of combat training from Tank, Marcus Chong, in a single sitting. Neo, like Ares, is optimistic, truly believing in himself and his abilities, eventually coming around to the idea that he is the one. He's also passionate, as seen in his love for Trinity, Carrie-Anne Moss, and willingness to give it all up to save her. When it comes to Ares' weaknesses, it's fair to say that Neo fits the bill across the board.
He can be impatient, which is why he's constantly searching for the Oracle, Gloria Foster, as he waits for her to present herself and is a bit miffed when she finally does. Neo can be moody, as seen in the Architect's Helmut Bacchitis chamber, with many of the previous version of the systemic anomaly showing off awfully short tempers. Neo's impulsiveness and aggressive nature are also seen at that time, as he's more interested in saving Trinity's life than allowing all of humanity to start over. Taurus as Morpheus. We've reached the conclusion that Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne, is the character from The Matrix, most closely aligned with the sign of Taurus. According to Refinery 29, Taurus strengths come in the form of reliability, a characteristic Morpheus demonstrates above all others. When you need him, he will be there. Like Taurus, Morpheus is also patient, advising Neo that the Oracle will reappear and make contact when she's ready. He's also practical, making the best use of what he has in any given situation. Morpheus also demonstrates extreme devotion, as seen in his willingness to sacrifice himself to save Neo because of his belief in him as the one. He's responsible, seemingly willing to go to the stockade at the beginning of the second movie, under the assumption that Commander Jason Locke, Harry Lennox, has sent men for him for asking another ship to stay behind in the Matrix. Morpheus also demonstrates Taurus weaknesses, in the form of stubbornness most of all, believing the prophecy of the One and going to any lengths to which he must in order to help facilitate its realization, much to Commander Locke's eternal enmity. We're not sure you'd really call him possessive, given the seeming ease with which he sees Captain Niobe, Jada Pinkett Smith, leave him and hook up with Locke, but he's certainly uncompromising, a trait we'd imagine is an absolute must when one has devoted their life to a cause so important as Morpheus believes his to be. Gemini as Switch. When it comes to the sign of Gemini, which is represented by a pair of celestial twins, it would have been all too easy to assign it the actual characters, the twins, Neil and Adrian Raymond. But we promised creative interpretation and that's pretty much the opposite, at which point we'd be getting aggravated. Yes, we would be. Instead, we posit that Gemini is Switch, as played by Belinda McClory. We'll divert from the Gemini characteristics for the most part on this one, which is not to suggest that Switch is not gentle, affectionate, curious, or adaptable, though we certainly don't see weaknesses like nervousness, inconsistency, or indecisiveness. Gemini's twins are often interpreted as a person having a dual nature, and Lily Wachowski revealed to the Netflix Film Club that the siblings' original conceptualization for Switch was quite different. The Matrix stuff was all about a desire for transformation, but it was coming from a closeted point of view. And so we had the character of Switch, who would be a man in the real world and a woman in the Matrix. That's where our headspaces were. In The Matrix, Switch is presented as androgynous and the dual nature isn't overtly examined. But, given Wachowski's insight after the fact, it makes the most sense for Switch to be aligned with a sign whose dual nature can be the source of conflict and inner turmoil, as many closeted LGBTQ+ people experience in real life. And the character's name isn't exactly cryptic, given Wachowski's perspective. Cancer as Tank. While Marcus Chong's character Tank was killed before The Matrix sequels saw the light of day, the Nebuchadnezzar's devoted, natural-born human operator displayed the most characteristics in line with the celestial crab, Cancer. In line with the traits listed by Refinery 29, Tank was certainly tenacious in pretty much every scene in which he appeared, though we're not sure he got to display anything that would suggest he was highly imaginative. He was, however, completely loyal, as displayed in both his decision to cut Morpheus' feed, demonstrating his loyalty to Zion, and the decision to send Neo and Trinity, Carrie Ann Moss, into the Matrix save the ship's intrepid captain. Tank certainly showed his emotional side via his outpouring of venom for the treacherous Cypher, Joe Pantoliano, and grief for his fallen brother Dozer, Anthony Ray Parker. While Tank displayed a good number of the strengths listed for Cancer, he wasn't a great fit for some of the weaknesses. Tank never came across as moody, though he definitely possessed a certain volatility where we could totally see that coming through. He wasn't overly pessimistic on the whole, though he wasn't shy about sharing his misgivings when it came to Neo's chances of successfully bringing Morpheus back.
Something about Tank's personality makes a suspicious nature totally believable, though not necessarily in a bad way. He has a certain wariness you could see around the eyes that more so looked like a healthy skepticism, plus a total lack of surprise to learn that Cypher was a traitor. Leo as Agent Smith. Apologies to all Leos out there. You're the first sign to match with a villain from The Matrix, though you won't be the last. Per the traits listed by Refinery 29, Agent Smith, Hugo Weaving, is the celestial lion, Leo. This is where some of that creative interpretation comes into play, and speaking of creativity, that's one of Leo's characteristics we don't have to shoehorn into a character. Smith's ability to double himself and infect people connected to the Matrix, namely, Bane, Ian Bliss, is certainly a creative and resourceful means of building an army. He's passionate in his desire to eliminate humanity and seeming aim to take over the Matrix. While we don't think you'd ever really call Agent Smith warm-hearted or cheerful, he certainly is humorous at times, cracking a notable line here and there. As far as Leo's weaknesses go, there's no denying Smith's arrogance. He sees only one path forward and it's his path. Going hand in hand with that arrogance is a genuine stubbornness, though it manifests itself in a certain type of resolve when it comes to Smith's unyielding will. Smith is certainly self-centered, though it could be argued he's simply trying to make himself the center of the Matrix. Lazy definitely doesn't fit with everyone's least favorite antagonist. His machinations convey an industriousness few could hope to match. But inflexible? Yes, certainly. We figured that was covered by the whole unyielding will part. Virgo as Commander Locke. When Commander Jason Locke, Harry Lennes, joined the cast of The Matrix franchise, he brought a sort of steely gravitas to the Zion leadership. Per the characteristics offered by Refinery 29, Locke most closely aligns with the sign of Virgo. He's loyal, easily seen in his sense of duty to Zion and what he perceives to be the proper way to prepare for the impending attack by the machine army. As a military commander, he's analytical by nature, needing to be able to assess Zion's strengths and weaknesses in the face of the enemy. Okay, so maybe kindness isn't the first word that springs to mind when considering Commander Locke, but at least he didn't throw Morpheus in the stockade. Mercy and kindness are related. Locke is certainly hardworking, focusing all of his energy into the last city's defense, and there's no denying that he's practical, which is why he's so angry that Morpheus convinced another captain to remain at broadcast depth in order to wait for potential word from the Oracle. Moving on to Virgo's weaknesses, we'd say shyness doesn't exactly fit. Locke's personality is pretty much the opposite of shyness. He's definitely worrisome, though that comes forward in the form of an overabundance of caution. Then again, is it really a matter of being overly cautious when he's trying to prevent the annihilation of the last remaining human society? Locke is surely overly critical of others, though we're unsure if he's able to turn that critical gaze upon himself. We can say with a degree of certainty that Locke is of the all-work and no-play mentality. Libra is the architect. Well, Libra, you're the second sign of the zodiac we feel most closely matches up with a villain from The Matrix franchise. In your case, it's the architect, Helmut Bakaitis, who shows up near the end of the Matrix trilogy to play a small but important role in the franchise's overall mythology. As the program that designed the Matrix, the architect explains that Neo is a systemic anomaly that is the result of an unbalanced equation in the Matrix's programming. Above all else, the architect is interested in balance and harmony, because a harmonious and perfectly functioning matrix means eternal life and existence for the AI hive mind. As such, the architect must be Libra, represented by a set of scales, signifying an overall need for balance. Though we'd peg the architect as Libra based on the desire for balance alone, the character does fit some of the characteristics listed at Refinery 29's astrological rundown. He is cooperative, working alongside other programs to design and implement the Matrix. The argument can be made that he's both diplomatic and gracious, despite the fact that he presents Neo some rather concrete terms. Most importantly, he presents Neo with a genuine choice, making him fair-minded to an extent, though he sees the result as a foregone conclusion. When it comes to Libra's weaknesses, you wouldn't call the architect indecisive or say he avoids confrontations and indulges in self-pity. It is, however, fair to say that he carries a grudge, given his self-described, sincerest efforts, to eliminate the anomaly in previous versions of The Matrix. Scorpio is Trinity Neo's lover and soulmate in The Matrix. Due to reappear in the fourth Matrix movie, Trinity, Carrie-Anne Moss, is one of the easiest characters from the franchise to pin down when it comes to signs of the zodiac. There can be no doubt that she is a Scorpio through and through. She hits nearly every single trait listed by Refinery 29. Strengths-wise, Trinity is about as resourceful as they come, making good use of whatever assets may be at hand at any moment she's plugged into the Matrix. She's also tremendously brave, putting her own life in harm's way in order to complete the mission when Bane Smith sabotaged the humans' plan and detonated an EMP prematurely. When it comes to passion, let's just say there's a certain scene set in their quarters in Zion that makes the case in so many words. Trinity is clearly stubborn, telling Neo he can go to hell if he doesn't like the idea of her tagging along to rescue Morpheus. She's also a true friend, empathizing with Tank over the loss of Dozer. Trinity displays nearly all of Scorpio's weaknesses. She's distrusting, taking a while to warm up to Neo at all, though perhaps that's because the Oracle told her she's supposed to fall in love with the one. She puts her jealousy on full display, pulling a gun on Persephone, Monica Bellucci, when she says the price for the keymaker, Randall Duck Kim, is a kiss from Neo. We're not sure we'd call Trinity secretive, but we're pretty sure labeling her as violent needs no elaboration. Sagittarius is the Oracle by our reckoning. The Oracle, as played by both Gloria Foster in the first two films and Mary Alice in the third, is the Matrix character that fits best with the astrological sign of Sagittarius, the celestial archer. Like Sagittarius, she is generous, giving of her wisdom to help the human rebels in general and Morpheus, specifically, when it comes to his quest to find the one. The Oracle is idealistic, providing guidance because she believes in the best possible outcome for all involved. It goes without saying that she possesses a great sense of humor, as seen in multiple scenes with Neo especially. Like when she called him, cuter than I thought, but ultimately, not too bright, though, in regards to the fact that he's utterly oblivious to Trinity's growing infatuation. Refinery 29 says that a Sagittarius may promise more than they can deliver, and that sounds like a fair criticism when it comes to the Oracle. In fact, what she promised was the truth, though she delivered the complete opposite. The Oracle told Neo he was not the one, though we of course later find that he is, indeed. Morpheus explains to Neo that the Oracle told him exactly what he needed to hear, which, while appreciated, is more a manipulation than the truth. Another trait common to Sagittarius and the Oracle is they will say anything, no matter how undiplomatic, much like her curt and straightforward message to Neo, leading him on the correct path but perhaps in the wrong mindset. Capricorn is the Merovingian Capricorn. You, too, are a matrix villain, though you're at least one of the cooler ones. Upon reviewing the Capricorn traits provided by Refinery 29, we've decided you're the best match for the posh and refined program the Merovingian, Lambert Wilson. The smug baddie is actually named for a French dynasty of the same name, one which is considered among the first race of the kings of France, according to Britannica, a fact that absolutely makes his personality make a lot more sense. The Merovingian is one of many exiled programs, perhaps the most powerful of them. When it comes to sharing Sagittarius' strengths, he is both responsible and disciplined, doing as much as he can to expand his illicit empire in a measured fashion so as not to receive too much attention from other elements of the matrix. Like Sagittarius, the Merovingian exercises self-control and makes for a good manager, something that doubtless made him useful to the matrix prior to his exile. The Merovingian falls prey to more than one of Sagittarius' weaknesses. For starters, he's a complete know-it-all, which can get on pretty much anyone's nerves. He's also unforgiving, sending the twins to retrieve the keymaker and destroy the crew of the Nebuchadnezzar. A common trait among know-it-alls is the tendency to be condescending, which is a criminal understatement when it comes to the Merovingian. He also expects the worst, which reinforces his disciplined manner of going about things. Aquarius is Counselor Hammond. Aquarius, the water-bearer, is one of those signs that needed a bit of creativity to suss out. At the end of our deliberations, we decided Counselor Hammond, Anthony Zerbe, was the best fit for this particular sign. Refinery 29 tells us Aquarians are progressive and Hammond may fit that trait well enough when considering his faith in Morpheus' plan. Whereas religion is one of the oldest institutions in human civilization, therefore making belief in the supernatural an old-school quality, in the post-matrix society in which the facts of existence are laid bare, belief in prophecy would be considered a novel concept. As a member of Zion's High Council, he is independent insofar as his decision-making is independent of the wishes of Zion's military leader in Commander Jason Locke. At the end of the day, Counselor Hammond does what he thinks is best for the survival of humanity, and what better pursuit could there be to call someone a humanitarian? Considering Sagittarius' weaknesses, we're not sure we would say Hammond runs from emotional expression, but it's certainly fair to say he's stoic in temperament. In his dealings with Locke, he is uncompromising, following his heart in the matter and refusing to give in the commander's woeful forecast faux doom. One could describe Hammond as aloof insofar as he prone to taking walks near Zion's core to be alone with the old machines and his thoughts, rather than ruminating with his fellow humans about whatever is in his mind. Pisces is Cypher. It is with the greatest of apologies to Pisces everywhere that we round our this matrix astrological roundup by declaring Cypher the member of the zodiac sign that most closely matches their sign. If you don't like being associated with one of the most shocking movie betrayals of all time, blame the machines. Whereas Refinery 29 tells us that Pisces is compassionate, we tell you Cypher is anything but. But Pisces is typically artistic and musical. Now, all we're really sure of is that Cypher can whistle. Which he does when discussing Morpheus' belief that he is the one with Neo. But we also know that in his negotiations with Agent Smith, he says he wants to come back as someone important, like an actor. Though his intuition is put to ill means, Cypher certainly has it, which is why he's able to surreptitiously meet with Smith and set a trap for Morpheus. Pisces is said to be wise, and we counter that Cypher is cunning, if not wise. While considering Pisces' strengths for Cypher required a broad and generous lens through which to look, he hits the sign's weaknesses pretty consistently. He is fearful of life in the real world, and one could say he was overly trusting when he took Morpheus up on the offer of the red pill. Cypher is certainly sad and fed up with life, giving him a desire to escape reality. While Pisces can be a victim or a martyr, it's fair to say that Cypher has a victim mentality and seeks re-enter the matrix because, as bleak as the real world can be, ignorance is bliss as a human battery.